Right, we are live now. You can start.
Okay, sir.
I think some disturbance in my Wi-Fi. So can I put the video off for some time?
Sure, sir. No problem. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's webinar, Made in India, Won Worldwide, Emerging Opportunities in Apparel Exports. So, as India looks to stretch its way into the global apparel mainstream, the road ahead is filled with promise and pressure. So, from the last moving looms of Bangladesh and Vietnam to scale-driven juggernaut of China, competition is fierce. Yet, India has the talent, the tradition, and the technological edge to rise as a global fashion powerhouse. So, today we'll dive into the opportunities and the challenges that define India's export story in the global apparel trade, which stood at a massive US dollar 447.2 billion in 2023. And with the global sourcing strategy shifting and demand surging in key categories like cotton t-shirts, women's wear, sustainable fashion, and India finds itself at a critical inflection point. So recent numbers also reflect that this momentum, 14.4% jump in apparel exports in April 2025, with textiles and apparel together contributing to around 8.21% of the Indian total exports in FY24. So, yet staying ahead in the global race will demand more than just the numbers. It will take innovation, agility, and strategic direction as well. So, on this points, we'd like to start the webinar. But first, we'll just introduce the panelists to you. So, we are delighted to have with us an exceptional panel that brings deep insights from both industry and policy. Firstly, we have Mr. Mithileshwar Thakur, Secretary General, Apparel Export Promotion Council. Welcome, sir. And secondly, we have Dr. Shobhit Bhushan, Managing Director, Fluidic Fashion Private Limited. Welcome to you, sir. Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Managing Director, Wazir Advisors. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Mr. Rahul Mehta, Mentor, Clothing Manufacturers Association of India. Welcome, sir. And lastly, we have Mr. Mahesh and Sanil, Executive Director at Powerloom Development and Export Promotion Council. So, welcome to all of you, and let's dive right into the conversation with, the first question that I have for Mr. Mithileshwar, sir. So, sir, with the recent US-China trade agreement involving significant tariff reductions from 125% to 10% by China on US goods and from 145% to 30% by the US on Chinese goods, the tariff gap between India and China has now narrowed. So, in this evolving trade landscape, how can India position itself as a reliable and scalable sourcing destination? So,
thank you for having me here. Well, you know, the global trade landscape is changing and changing very, very fast. So initially, China imposed some 10% tariff, additional tariff on, US imposed some 10% additional tariff on China. Subsequently, it was doubled to 20%. And then when the trade war, when full-blown trade war started, then I think USA imposed a tariff of 145% on China on 9th of April. And then suddenly then you find, so it looked like it is an India opportunity because we had missed the China plus one opportunity bus post-COVID. So looked like that because the door for Chinese exports to US were, well and truly closed. So it was an opportunity for India to basically once again, try out that China plus one opportunity. But suddenly you find that on 12th of May, US and China agreed and they have, 90-day rollback they have announced and tariff from both sides because China also had, retaliated by 125% duty. So the rollback and by 115% on both sides. So now it is 30 and 10%. On US goods, China will import 10% additional duty on Chinese 30% by US. So suddenly the advantage that we had, seems to be fading overnight. And that all those possibilities and probabilities of India, getting deeper investing in deeper manufacturing has suddenly, gone for a toss because that competitive advantage having been, stalled. But having said that, with we, in the interregnum, US imposed this reciprocal tariff against every country, basically to bring everyone on the table. So on 2nd of April, that reciprocal tariff was announced. And there we found that we enjoy some kind of a competitive advantage, vis-a-vis Bangladesh, because our reciprocal tariff was 26%, Bangladesh was 37%, Vietnam was 46%. So we had an advantage. And so we had Bangladesh opportunity because of the political tensions over there. Then there was another opportunity. But given the idiosyncrasies, if I can use the term, of Mr. Trump and his mercurial nature and knee-jerk reactions, you never know where the tariffs will finally settle. Because when he can give overnight concession to a country like China, you never know. Vietnam, which is viewed as an extension of China, a surrogate country, they also may get some concession. Bangladesh has already approached, they have approached, they are going head over heels basically to accommodate US requests. So they have already approached the USA for tariff concessions. So it all remains to be seen where the tariff line finally settle. And that is where the problem is. And all these changes basically give very little time for what you call policy rejig and reorientation, So that is where the problem is. Now, what India should do, I think that India should not harp on others' tariff policy and trade policy basically to look for export competitiveness. I think India has to set its own house in order. And for that, the first thing what India must do is that we should, because we were the first ones basically to approach USA for this BTA negotiation. So we should try, accelerate and expedite this BTA negotiation as fast as we can. As far as textile and apparel sector is concerned, I think we had given a proposal for zero tariff, and that's what I think government has taken it forward. There is a possibility, a hint that the additional tariff that they are imposing 26%, that may go away. MFN will remain. That is what the initial hints are. So but finally India must set its own house in order, because we had Bangladesh plus one opportunity, but there also we are not sure whether we will be able to capitalize on that, because the major issue of capacity constraint is very much there, unavailability of labor, all sorts of problems that they are grappling with. So we must have lots of investment here, particularly in even in the upstream industry, like in processing and in weaving, the capacity augmentation, the PLI scheme, which was we have, that we have a major, I would say, disconnect with the global demand, because we are essentially a summer-centric, cotton garment exporting country, and the world is moving towards MMF. I do not want to give those numbers, because we are 60-40 in favor of cotton and non-cotton. Globally, it is like 30-70, or rather it is 28-72. So because of the affordability and durability and all of that, the advantage that MMF garments enjoy, I think the world is moving towards MMF, and we cannot remain, a spectator. So the PLI scheme was very rightly announced, but there are some of the major problems that PLI scheme fundamentally has, particularly for garment sector. Because the threshold that has been given is 100 crores. That is, and this particular sector is basically dominated by MSMEs. Of course, now that MSME definition, has fundamentally changed. So I think everybody will come under that. But point is, it is not designed actually for apparel sector. So we had said that bring down the threshold limit, number one. Then the value addition norm that is fixed was 60%, which was, not, I would say, realistic. It should be brought down to 40%. Year-on-year growth of 25% has been, stipulated in PLI 1. That I think should be brought down to industry norms. So, and of course, the eligible product export basket needs to be expanded. All this has already been flagged before the ministry. That is what we require to do. We must hold what we call investment conclaves. And the PM Mitra Park, of course, is fundamentally designed to change the entire landscape. But then the operationalization of PM Mitra Park must be expedited. And of course, the industry must move to what you call labor surplus areas, because generally you find that garment sectors are essentially confined to, tier 2 and tier 1 cities, and you have unavailability of labor during peak seasons. So I think industry, rather than workers moving to industry, it is time that industry moves to labor. And in those states like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Orissa and Bihar, I think you will have, and all these states, they have come out with wonderful, textile policy, which has wage subsidy element, capital subsidy element, free electricity, a lot of incentives. So I think that is what needs to be done. And of course, there is a major gap, the skill gap, whether we admit it or not. The skilling schemes in India, by and large, have failed, particularly in textile and garment industry. That is where I think the new Samarth scheme, of course, has been that industry itself has to. I mean, it is not given to training centers, but I think skilling is something where we need to come up with some out of the box solution and give proper attention. I think if we are able to address the basic issues, then only probably we will be able to, move out of this rut, because we are kind of stuck into that 15, $16 billion thing for quite some time. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. If anyone would like to add, Rahul, sir, would you like to add something?
No, I think Thakur Sahab has summarized the current situation in a very comprehensive manner. I can only say that one of the weaknesses of our policy making has been looking at individual issues and problems in isolation and not taking it in a comprehensive manner. So, for example, you might look at the MMF issue, that we do not have sufficient MMF manufacturing. But you will have a PLI scheme which will promote MMF, but then you will not do anything about the imports of raw materials. Now, when you address the imports of raw materials, you will not look at the basic structure of the garment industry, which is an MSME. And therefore, what can be a brilliant scheme for a Shahi or an Orient Craft or Gokaldas, may not really be relevant for 98% of the industry. So my only concern is that the textile industry has to be looked at as a whole. The problems of the industry have to be taken together and not addressed in isolated parts. I think he's explained this in great detail. I don't need to repeat that, except, as I said, to summarize it, that we need to look at it as a comprehensive whole manner.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, yes, sir, Prashant, sir.
So, Ashima, I would just, because there is a lot of discussions going on in terms of what's the final tariff structure will be for US. What now today only it is announced that with Europe also there will be an interim FTA or kind of trade agreement which is going to happen because UK has already happened. So I think one thing what Thakurji said and what Rahul Bhai said, at the end of it, it's not about the tariff negotiation. The way things are opening up, India will always be, now will be an advantageous position, whether it is US, UK already signed, Europe coming forward to sign it. So it's when you can take advantage of all these evolving tariff situations only when you are able to invest. There has to be a much larger investment. So key focus has to be today, I think last 3-4 years, first time I am seeing while there are a lot of FDI was discussed, a lot of buyers coming to India was discussed, but this is last few years, buyers actually want to come to India and see that they can create an alternative to China. So this few years phenomena. So from that perspective, I think whatever final negotiations are going to happen, India vis-a-vis other Asian countries, because 80% is supplied from Asia. So vis-a-vis Asian countries will be at a competitive position. And we will, like Indian government is already moving ahead very fast in terms of negotiation from all sides, whether UK, EU, or US. So from that perspective, it is the time to invest. Now, when we are talking, it is the time to invest, whether it is private industries to come forward and invest, whether it is government, as Rahul Bhai said it has to be comprehensively seen from whether PM Mitra, PLI, mini parks, DIPP, they are announcing. So how infrastructure and ecosystem can be created. At the same time, how worker trained workforce is available. So the ecosystem needs to set whoever's role is what has to come forward. This is again a golden time for India to really invest competitively in front end, which is as a garment, as an engine of growth, and take advantage of global situation which is emerging.
Okay.
If I may, like I was telling someone that, the elements have conspired, to help apparel industry, because you had China plus one, then Bangladesh plus one, then again, reciprocal tariff opportunity. So it is now on the industry now to take it forward and invest in skilling and, and scaling. That's very important.
If I may expand on what Thakur Sahib has said in a slightly lighter manner, it is like the Pandit saying that the stars are perfectly matched for this marriage to take place. But are the bride and the bridegroom willing to marry? I think is a question which people have not answered. Is the industry ready? Is the government ready to take full advantage of this whole entire situation? And I just want to make one point. We're talking a lot about this trade tariff wars and so on. My personal view, Ashima, is that trade tariffs is only one aspect of the entire world trade decision making, if I may put it that way. Yes, the prices and the costs will make a difference and will influence the final decision of the buyer, but it is not the only thing. And in my opinion, even if we have a 0% import duty to the US market or the EU market, it's not that we are going to go from $15 billion to $50 billion overnight. Are we ready to invest that kind of money? As Prashant very correctly said, do we have the scale? Do we have the capacities? Do we have the mindset to make an industry instead of just the factory owners that we are sort of currently at? And in more than anything else, it's something that CMAI has always been harping on, that we are a nation of glorified job workers. And Thakur Sahib, please do not repeat this to the APC committee members, because I'll be in serious trouble with my friends.
No, not at all.
But essentially,
राहुल भाई सुनाई नहीं दे रहा
dignified way, we are white label manufacturing. Can you hear me?
you're breaking
In between, sometimes you are breaking, maybe internet issues.
So,
yeah
so what I'm
put your
saying,
video off
नहीं सर शक्ल बहुत जरूरी है देखनी सर महेश जी
It's okay,
शक्ल
sir.
देखनी
You're
जरूरी
audible
है
now. Yeah.
मगर आवाज आधा सुने if you can listen
यार,
to it then it would be difficult
इतनी हैंडसम शक्ल को आप बंद कर दोगे तो कैसे चलेगा?
हाँ ये बात सही है
He's brand ambassador of the industry. You want this video to
No,
you say?
so what I'm saying is that if we continue to make for our buyers labels, we will always be in a price war and various other battles with our competitors. The only way we can create a niche for ourselves is either to make a totally specialized and unique product base, or we create our own brands. This is the only way that we can actually distinguish ourselves from a country like, for example, Bangladesh, which will always be cheaper than us. You can't compete with Bangladesh on price, and which unfortunately today we are attempting to do. And I mean, we are all going gung ho and saying that okay, FTA 0% import duty and so on. Let's not forget that so many countries who are exporting more than us, their wages are actually higher than us. So it's not, cost is not the only factor. Have we done enough on sustainability front? Have we done enough on the various other compliance requirements of the developed countries? Unless we again take a comprehensive view, we are not likely to go much beyond, instead of $15 billion, as Thakur Saab said, we'll probably go to 17 billion, we'll probably go to 20 billion, which will be great for a few exporters, but not really for the industry as a whole. If you want to make a quantum jump, we will need to do much more than just be lower price. And let's face it, India is a growing economy. The aspirations of people are growing, and we will never be the cheapest manufacturing base in the world. We will never be so. We've gone past that. So we will have to create a base, a platform for marketing ourselves, which is other than that of price.
Okay, so Dr. Shobit or Mahesh sir would like to add something, or we can move forward.
Yes, of course, I would like to add
Yeah.
something which is important. And till now, whatever the discussion has been done, it's wonderful, and very key points have been discussed already. Adding to those, Sir just recently talked about factors other than cost, which is going to be primarily things that should put India more forward in this whole ecosystem. Is see, India is very rich in culture, so we all agree to it, all right? So we are having ample of things, and creative art in terms of garments or anything. Like we have Banarsi sarees, for example, and we have Kutch art in terms of garments, which nobody else in the world have. Okay, so we should also, you can count on these factors to add on to the exports, because these are very non-competitive items. So if we are talking about competition, so competition comes when I have something, you have something, and third person is having something, so we compete on prices or cost or labor things. But something which we have uniqueness in our system, in our country, so I think we should count on that, and we should promote those things further, which has an identity of its own. So that is one of my point I would like to raise and add to the conversation. Yeah.
I would like to add one more point, Ashima. That is what Rahulji and Prashantji said. Policy advocacy is very important. Engaging with policymakers to address trade-related issues and promote Indian interests, as well as capacity building, offering training and workshop, which is like summer scheme, as Thakurji said. AEPC is doing a number of Samarth projects, as well as we have taken this time, first time that we are training around in this year, maybe 15,000 workers. So all these initiatives help, because as big brands are there, they will take PLI and other schemes. Small exporters, like in the powerloom industry, MSMEs, like Rahulji was saying, 70% to 80% come from that industry, even in apparels. Even in, we cannot only talk about big brands. So how they can be looped in, that has to be taken care of. Then it's a win-win situation for the textile industry.
Certainly.
Ashima, if I can add,
Yes, sir.
see, like we have set a target for ourselves, 40 billion by 2030. Now the calculation is that you would require at least 1,200 factories of the average size that India has to I mean, that was the capacity addition you really require to reach that kind of a target. And by if you extrapolate the existing rate of addition of factories, I think by 2030 we will be able to add somewhere like 250 to 300 factories. So the only way out is to what you call increase UVR, unit value realization, and that you can not real. So Indian brands have to become global. And how do you become global? See, but how Bangladesh has done. You need to have all kinds of certifications, lead certification. We have, I think, only 13 lead certified factories. Recently, for your information, I think only a week back, we had entered into MOU with GBCI. And we have set a target that by 6 months or a year, at least have another 100 LEED certified factory in India. You can have, all those kinds of certification, eco passport, or जो भी है. You need to arm yourself with all kinds of global certifications so that you can display to the world that, look, we are capable of handling this, And of course, ESG compliance, like what we have been doing right now, we have set up sustainability clinics in cluster and dashboards in, factory, everybody's factory, so that you can monitor your carbon emissions. And recently, we are holding, there is something called ISA, we have coined a term, Apparel Industry Sustainability Action. So we were holding road shows and recently, we have had meeting with IDH and Grain Store and all these, major ESG players. So I had mooted an idea that let us create a industry ESG task force. There may not be any government guy in this, so that at least you need to prepare yourself. Tomorrow you will have those all kinds of the complex wave of ESG architecture compliance that UU has created, CS triple D and ESPR and CSRD. I think Indian MSMEs will find it hard to grapple with those and the cost and compliance burden. So at least at a task force we formed people like Rahul Mehtaji and Prashant Agarwal, so that we can move ahead and do something on the ground rather than confining ourselves to drawing room and discussing.
Right.
So, moving ahead, my next question is for Shobit sir. So, which specific product categories hold the greatest promise for India in the short to medium term? What do you think, sir?
So, if we look at the recent data which has come up, so there are a lot of products like knits and other articles. So, currently, India has more potential towards going for cotton-based products. So, India being one of the major exporters of their cotton raw material. So, but in terms of final product, India is still lacking on the cotton based materials still, which Bangladesh is able to cater, Vietnam or Cambodia is able to cater. So I think more of the cotton based products is should be coming up. Apart from that, we should always and try to test on performance fabrics and smart clothing which has a utility. So and introducing fashion technology, because that brings multiple facet to the garment. So garment as an individual is being seen just a wearable cup of a wearable thing. So if we adding a technology like we have sports technology to the garment apparel and the purpose, so that will add an added advantage to the Indian industry apart from being just a cotton player globally. So these are my few points that I feel should be addressed, because India is being a very labor intensive economy. If we are combining it with more of the tech, so that will be a game changer for the industry.
Mahesh sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add one point. What exactly can be done is integrated apparel hubs or clusters could help India match the scale and efficiency as per the China model. Because in China, they have been doing this for quite some time, concentrating mostly on production, sharing resources, encouraging innovation. Prashantji, you can add on it. You are an expert.
Yeah. No, I think I would like to add that when we talk about garment industry is actually not textiles. It's an industrial engineering factory, like any other factory where buyer tells you this is the fabric, these are the trims, this is the design, this is the pattern, everything it gives you, and you have to make and convert into a garment in
Right.
the most efficient manner, so that the more efficient you are, the most cost competitive you are, and then you can export in a larger quantities. So I think this is understood. The moment this is understood, then you can divide garment into, okay, it is cotton India, world looks towards India for cotton based products. So we need to consolidate in cotton. But as already talked about, that 72% of global trade is in synthetic. So when 72% is in synthetic, while India has such big population and consumes as well as it should be exporting everything, so India needs to expand into synthetic base. And some of the product categories like t-shirts, dresses, tops, these are where India is very good at it. But we should divide this into technical garments and little less technical. When you say technical garments like lingerie, suits, if you leave that aside, being an industrial engineering factory, you can cater to all these products. T-shirts alone in US, I was seeing the numbers, is almost $7 billion exports alone. So India does 6% of US in t-shirts. So I think the category itself, every category is in billions of dollars, and we are in millions. And together, so I think the moment we improve on efficiency of our factory and work on a supply chain, I think India can go to 10% plus share in times to come. It's just we have to look at this industry in a different view. That today, I think the smart factories we are talking about digitalization, we are talking about automation. So we can leapfrog from, we don't have to go from what we were doing 10 years, what we were doing 5 years back, and what we should do now. What we should do now is look towards this industry as an industrial engineering industry, as an industry first, instead of just a job worker, which we talked about, as an industry, then as an industrial engineering factory, and then see that how automation, smarter factories, all can help us become more productive, export more. We are not saying we should employ less. Per machine employment will be less, but when you have larger number of machines, your employment will be much more. I think the moment we look towards this in this factory, we'll start making money. Everybody will look towards you, and we'll start exporting more. This is how I think we should look at this industry from product mix as well as from an industry viewpoint. Factory, from a conversion factory, we have to go for industry. Then there are so many other things which needs to be added after that.
Right.
So, Rahul sir or Nitileshwar sir, would you like to add something?
Yeah, see, there is a major disconnect between the global demand and India's export basket. And that is not only true of this industry. Overall, you see, 70% of India's exports actually targets only 30% of global trade. 50% of India's export targets only 11% of the global trade. And the problem is more acute here because of already discussed, cotton MMF imbalance, right? In fact, top 20 products of India constitute about, I think, 64% of India total exports. And you can name a few on fingertips, T-shirts. Cotton T-shirts comprise some 11% of India's exports. Then you have blouses, you have shirts, you have babies' garments, and children dresses. I think if you take only these five, I think it will be not less than 50%. So, very narrow and very restricted export basket that we have. And so I was trying to ascertain, and it is not only MMF, even in cotton, say, even like market like USA or globally, there is a huge demand for cotton, what you call pullovers, cardigans, and jerseys. We don't make them much. We are very poor in that. I was trying to ascertain. Yesterday, I was talking to Mr. Siva Ganpati of Gokuldas, what is, because I was getting different kinds of answers, and we want to deep dive and understand that why we can't make that. What is the problem? Somebody said that we don't have jacquard machine. So I was not convinced. So I talked to him. He said, look, India, what is called higher SAM products, where the standard allotment is more, and complicated products, we have a mindset of not doing that. We are not entering into that area. Because why I ask Gokuldas? Because they are the ones who are doing pullovers and cardigans. So even in cotton, some of the niche products, which has huge global demand, we are not into that. So we are trying to identify, like we are very weak in bottoms or lowers. You can think pants mein nahi hota. Ab somebody was saying the stitching content in lowers is more. I do not know because I am not a man for this industry. I will pick on maybe Rahul Mehta's his brain. But then the answer didn't seem very convincing. So we want to find out. And then what? So you need to what we call C7 strategy. You have to find out the product of high demand where India has reasonable capability, which cluster it is catering, and then compare it with competitors, where are we faltering in cost and compliance issues? And if there is any intervention that is required either from the industry or association or from the government, then we should, identify and do that. Because ultimately, you have to get down to the basics. And of course, like somebody said right now, that technology infusion is a must, because see, Bangladesh being LDC, they have an advantage of duty-free access. You can't do anything about that. They can give provided subsidies, they can, you cannot. But the problem is, our productivity is of course, productivity is less, not only because your capacity utilization is less. Winter wear आप नहीं बनाते हो, so what happens that your factories are not running at full capacity all the time, but your productivity also is very less. I think we manufacture around 20 to 21 clothes a day. Bangladesh has, I think it is 30. Another problem is that the Indian labor laws allow you one extra hour only, 8+1, whereas in Bangladesh and Vietnam it is 8+4. But those are other issues. But point is productivity. Like unique guy was telling that the basic industrial engineering is not followed by Indian workers. Like you have something called time study, work study, how you should have, your movement of hands, and how you should position yourself. These are the basic things where Indian workers go wrong. Huge attrition. So some of the basic issues, I think we need to look inwards. Because like somebody very rightly said, I think Rahul Mehta ji ne bataya, like you do not depend on somebody's tariff policy. China was not having FTA with any country, but they're still competitive. Economy of scale. So you need to put your own house in order. At least in FOB terms, you should be competitive.
Right. So moving on, my next question is for Prashant sir. So how can a small, medium apparel exporters align with the global sustainability and traceability standards to stay competitive in your view, sir?
So I think this is a topic which we talk about sustainability and traceability. What happens is, if you are into a business, whether you are small or big, you have to follow the norms. So if the world needs you to be sustainable and traceable, you have to slowly. It's not that you become everything now. You have to have a kind of ESG roadmap. So every company, whether small and big, has to have an ESG roadmap, where we say E is for environment, whether what kind of water usage, chemical usage, power usage. So these are all norms. And then where do you stand, and how do you reduce it over a period of years? Similarly, social norms, like how do you take care of your workforce? That's how. One is law of the land, another is workforce. Today, when we talk, the moment you start looking at all these aspects, there is today the cost being added, tomorrow the cost being reduced. Because if you take care of your power, then power cost getting reduced. But today, the kind of technology you might have to use, it might cost you more, right? Secondly, when we talk about social welfare, today I was reading somewhere that Foxconn is coming with a dormitory of 30,000 people with all latest facility. Before putting up a factory, they're putting up dormitory. Here we put a factory and think of putting dormitory. There are 30,000 people, Rahul bhai, in Bangalore, near, in Dodwallapur, where their factories are coming. So today we talk about how can we put up 2,000 machine dormitory. No garment exporter wants to put up these kind of dormitories. They know that worker is the key asset in an assembly unit. That's why I started. The whole concept needs to change. We are not a garment factory. We are an industrial engineering organization where people and process, these are the two things to make us successful. And people, we don't want to take care. Any garment exporter I ask, yes, sir, the attrition is 10-15%. Where the people go, where they're coming from, where they're vanishing, nobody did any research on that. They have the clue in terms of this might be happening, but nobody has the clue. And this factory, iPhone manufacturer, is putting up a 30,000. Like, how he'll manage the workforce? Will they not have problem of compliance? No, they are prepared. They know if their workers are not happy, you can't deliver that high quality iPhone. You can't deliver that productively. So you can keep talking about technology. If people are not right, who are there, who are efficiently trained, you can't deliver it. So the whole concept, when we say sustainability, the sustainability is not only about when you say ESG norms, everything has such minute connotations. Then governance again in terms of what all facilities to be provided, PSI. Beyond that, how do you? So today, if today all these electronics factories are coming, if our garment exporter thinks that 20% or 25% increase in workforce wages will be a doomscroll for their industry, they are not going to survive. I tell you, today attrition is 10%, tomorrow it will be 20%. Because worker is a worker, whoever will pay them more, they will go there. India is growing, GDP is growing. So today, if you want workforce, suddenly you say, oh, workforce we trained and it has gone. Samarth mein trained kiya, it has gone. So it will be gone because somebody pays him even today 1,000 rupees more, 500 rupees he goes. Tomorrow somebody is saying, I'll pay you more, I'll give you better facility. Why a worker, see from a worker perspective, why he will like to stay with the garment factory? He will never like to stay with the garment factory. So I think ESG norms, I'm just giving you the whole concept in how sustainability, traceability, everything is a big cost also. So when it comes to MSME, you talked about small players. I think there comes the role of government also.
Right.
We are trying to make norms like APC also working a lot. Thakurji talked about. But I think if you want smaller players to jump into it, government needs to have a policy in place where they say, okay, for these initial, let's take 500 factory pilot plant. 500 factories will help them make sustainable, will create the norms for everything, and then say, okay, to have this, government should fund. There should be norms created. Government always feels like, okay, how we are going to fund sustainability initiatives. You put a norms for everything, and then say that, otherwise, you can't expect a smaller player to invest so much while he knows that he can't do business without it. He will be out of business in some point of time if he doesn't go into sustainability or traceability. So, but everything initially has a cost. After that, once initial cost is done, it is a sustainability which he can take care because sustainability talks about overall reduction in cost, not overall increase in cost. Overall, just imagine if your attrition level, which we are talking about 10 to 15% in garment factory, goes to 1 to 2%, and your efficiency productivity increases by 20%. All the costs you are talking about goes in air. You don't bother about those costs. You bother about because you are inefficient and you are not able to deliver on time. The air shipment happens because all linked to this people part. So my net, I can really talk at length. This is a subject which is most concerning subject for the garment industry. But I would say my net should be yes, sustainability, traceability is very important. We should have an ESG roadmap. And in this area, government should really help because initial costs are high for everything. Beyond making norms, we should help government should help these MSMEs to really come up, and they should be help. It's not a continuous lifelong help. It's an initial help. They become more sustainable, more profitable. They can be good for long term. I think cost, everything is going to go up. And if we don't really work on these aspects, I think the target that we are talking about 15 to 40 billion is not only about investments, it's about availability of workforce also. Because if workforce is not available, how you scale up? Because this workforce will go to other industry, and that's a dilemma for country like India, where options are many. Thank you.
Right, sir. So anyone would like to add? Rahul sir, Mithileshwar sir?
Yeah, I think Thakurji wants to say something.
See, the world is moving towards responsible clothing and ethical sourcing, and there is no getting away from that. The point is, the challenge here is that the industry being dominated by MSMEs, I think the cost and compliance burden on them is enormous. So what is the way out? One is that we have taken up with the government. You know that now the government has come up with export promotion mission, where all the incentives which were being given have been clubbed together. And now the various components have been, we are being discussed, which could be the components. One, I think by and large, government has agreed on our request that certification costs borne by MSME should be, to a great extent, be reimbursed to them. Because otherwise, MSMEs may not be able to take that kind of a cost burden and become very uncompetitive. Secondly, role comes of associations and bodies like us that we need to handhold MSMEs. Like what I recently got done, I said कि all the European regulations, put a FAQ on the website. And I said कि write in the common man's language, not in a legal language, so that FAQ means somebody should understand how this will proceed, and and I will have those some of the videos released. I've also decided that some AI generated bots will put in our council, so that some of the repetitive and common queries could be answered by AI generated bot itself, because you need to be readily available, and that is what I think trade suspicion is all about. Because if somebody has to look up to somebody, how do we go about this? So these are some of the small steps I think take, and of course government has that ESG task force in the ministry and all that. But I think there's a greater need for greater engagement by the government to basically make industry move to on the road towards ESG compliance.
Okay. So, Rahul sir, my next question is for you. So, how can India leverage existing and future free trade agreements to enhance its global apparel export competitiveness and gain better market access compared to the key competitors in India?
Well, I think this question has already been answered by most of us, but I can just summarize the fact by repeating what I said earlier, that the trade agreements cannot be the only factor in increasing our exports, at least a quantum jump in our exports. They can only be one of the relevant factors. We need to increase our product base, which is the most important aspect, I think. What people sometimes forget, we all talk about our market share being only 3.75% or 4% or whatever. But I think in the very narrowly defined niche that we have our garment exports, Thakur Sahib will probably confirm this or disagree, is basically cotton casual wear in the low to mid price segment. If you look at the world trade in this particular segment, I think our market share will probably be close to 12 to 15%, if I mistake not. So there is a limit to which we can increase our market share in this particular niche. So unless we increase and broaden our product base, we are not going to be able to significantly increase our market share. So that's one aspect of it. The other point is, I think we Indians have a habit of resting on our laurels and assuming that every positive step that takes place, will result in the world buyers rushing to our doorsteps with their POs in hand. That does not happen. We made this mistake when the quotas were removed. We felt that India, now exports are going to boom, forgetting the fact that the quotas were removed for the rest of the competitors also. When the world began talking about China plus one, we said, oh, now where is the option? They have to come to India. And they waited for the buyers to come who never came because they went to Bangladesh.
Right.
Now people are saying Bangladesh is in trouble. It is burning law and order. Now they have to come to India. They will not come to India. They will go to Vietnam. So the point is that we are not making adequate efforts, as I say, again, repeat the same old statement, in a comprehensive manner to try and take advantage of the opportunity that is there. The opportunity is there. I mean, UK FTA being signed, some sort of a trade agreement with the US. I mean, what more do you want? US, UK, and Japan, they are three of the largest importing countries, and we will have FTAs with these three countries. What more can we ask?
Even with EU, sir, we'll be having.
Yeah. EU. Sorry, when I said UK, I actually meant EU. What more can we ask for? But are we prepared to do that? How many, again, APC will be able to answer this. But in the last 6 months, this circumstances are appearing positive, I think, for the last 6 to 8 months, if I'm mistaken not. And how many exporters have increased their capacities in the last 6 months? How many people have set up new factories? Very, very few. There will be the Pearl Global, there will be the Shahi, but these 2, 3, 4 exporters are not going to take our exports from 15 billion to 40 billion. You require the entire ecosystem to move ahead with this. So this is something that, according to me, is lacking. Perhaps one of the reasons for this lack of enthusiasm is the lack of profitability. People are not yet, and one of the reasons I uh, ascribe to is our earlier profitability. It's a contradiction in terms, but our existing exporters have made such tons of profit in the good old days, in the quota period, which was 20 years ago, that today a 3 to 5% profitability, which will be seen as a healthy profit by most other industries, is not even looked at as a business being viable. So that is why all profits being made in this industry are being diverted to other industries. I don't need to name, Thakur Sahib knows various committee members who have moved from garments to hospitality and so on and so
Right,
forth.
right.
But this is the honest and stark fact that people are not investing more. I still remember in one of the meetings that I had attended, when we were talking about exports not having improved or not increased, one of the exporters asked, "All right, in the last 1 year, how many new machines have been put in by the 20 members sitting in this room?" And not one hand went up. Now, if you don't increase your machines, how are you going to increase your exports? So, these are the things that we need to look at. We have to move away, as I said earlier, from the cost factor, because tariff ultimately, FTAs ultimately refer to the cost factor. That's the only aspect that it addresses. It doesn't address anything else. So you have to move away from the cost factor, because India is not going to be the cheapest source of supply. You have to take on sustainability. You have to take on compliance. You have to take on product availability. You have to take on speed to the stores, from concept stage to the store. What is your timeline today to get 100,000 meters of fabric? You have to wait for 3 months. How are you going to be the number one or number two or even number three supplier in this world unless you take care of these things? So all these aspects have to be addressed if really we need to move from 15 to 40. I feel we are giving too much of focus and too much of attention on the FTAs and tariff wars. We need to look at the broader picture.
Okay. So,
I, may
yes,
I?
sir. Yes, sir. Please go
I'm
ahead.
entirely in agreement with whatever has been said by all members. In fact, couldn't agree more. We Indians have a penchant for premature celebration. Every FTA deal, and we will go gung ho without addressing our inner issues. I thought just a word of caution.
It's like sorry, I couldn't help myself. It's like having the Sangeet party before the wedding.
So now, see, we need to trade with caution while negotiating with US, because I'll tell you there's an issue there. One is that whatever agreements they have done so far, they go for yarn forward rule. If that they apply to India, then the garments which is made out of imported fabric will not be able to enjoy tariff concession in US. So we have said to the ministry in very no uncertain terms. In fact, many industry members were not even aware what yarn forward rule is all about. Yarn forward rule is that you will get concession only when you manufacture yarn onwards. So we have said a strict no to them. There is another problem, that even if you don't enjoy tariff concession, even in non-preferential rules of origin, US maintains something what is called substantial transformation, though illogical, but it is in place. So even otherwise, even if you don't properly negotiate, they can invoke that provision, because that substantial transformation thing is quite opaque, and and they applied it according to So could be that if you import from China, I mean, God, thankfully the Chinese tariff has come down, because otherwise, it would have happened if you import from China fabric and manufacture garment and export without having an FTA with UK, they would probably apply Chinese tariff and shut the doors for you. So this is something I think industry was not aware. We have flagged it before the ministry. So rather than getting gung ho, I think we should do our homework very well and do a nuance analysis. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I may have to go now because
Yes, yes.
my
Yes, sir.
chairman has lost his mother, so I have to go for prayer meeting.
Okay.
It will take. So if I have your permission, can I just
Sure,
leave?
sir. Sure, sir. Sorry to hear about her, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure, sir.
So I think. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Rahul Mehta Saab, and thank all of you. It was
Mithilesh ji, thank
great,
you.
Thank you, sir.
great,
Thank you
great,
for
great
joining us
interacting with all of
today.
you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, sir, for your wonderful insights about the industry, and thank you for the inputs.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, continuing the talk, what steps are being taken by exporters to improve India's supply chain responsiveness, especially in lead time and logistics? My question is for Mahesh, sir. So, Mahesh, sir, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ashima, the thing is, so I would summarize it in maybe 3 or 4 bullet points. Uh, first will be like diversifying sourcing basis. For example, exporters who are exploring alternative options, they can reduce the dependence on single locations and also mitigate risks. This is what I think. This is my thoughts. Other panel members may have different thoughts. And second is investing in technology. Each and every company, like whether it is MSME or large companies, they have to see that companies adopt to digital solutions to enhance supply chain visibility, track shipments, whether it is pre-shipment or post-shipments, and optimize their logistics. What do you say, Prashant sir? Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
They have to. I think technology is playing a big role nowadays.
yeah, yeah. And third
And
is what I feel is improving their own infrastructure, upgrade for, like you can say, transporting networks, warehouses, and ports are being made to reduce transit times and cost. This would be my third point as per your question. India supply responsiveness, particularly in lead and logistics, right, Ashima?
Yes, sir.
And the fourth point, what comes in my head is like companies who are investing in specialized logistics services, such as cold chain logistics to cater to specific industry demands, uh, like for example, a shipment is coming from North India, how much time it will take, and in how much time it will be delivered, whether it is to USA or EU or whichever market. So all this management has to be done much in advance, which, as Prashant ji said, for MSMEs, like mostly my powerloom sector, most of them are under are MSMEs. So for them, they should have a a wholesome place where government can have, we can do some policy advocacy for them, we as a council, we can help them get in touch with the government with their specific demands, like how to increase competitiveness and boost their exports. So these are the few thoughts which I have, and you can ask our experts if they have any more inputs.
Okay, I have some few things to add to this point. So, as said, there are a lot of PM Mitras, approximately 7, which is coming up and in the plan with the government. So, developing those Mitra parks and connecting those parks to the corridors, economic corridors, should be very helpful for the industry, because movement of the goods, yes, timely delivery of the goods and the movement, fast movement of the goods plays a key role in terms of buyers' keen interest into the supply. So, if a buyer is getting timely supply with the cost, because we have been talking about the cost in all this forum. So apart from cost, if we focus on the deliveries also, and so we have currently, if we see, we have few of the centers that textiles are manufacturing. One is being in Ludhiana, one is in Tirupur, one is in Bangalore. So if we are able to scatter these centers to different areas within the state, in the territory, so we will be having more of the labor, local labor that can be involved in the process. So eventually we are enhancing the ecosystem and thus enhancing the production capacity, along with all the points that have been taken till now, be it introduction of the technology that needs to be taken care, be it the investment, right investment policy from the government, be it the FTAs. So catering to the industry which is centric to few of the points, few of the regions, should help this, and connecting all those regions with the economic and movement corridors is very important right now. What Dubai and UAE have done till now is, Dubai is one of the key global distribution center of the world right now. Previously it was Europe, and then US, of course it have been there, but Dubai is coming up with the distribution center hub of the world. So if we are able to make India as a hub of a distribution center, that should be a very turning point for the industry. This is my opinion.
Thank you,
I
sir.
I would say
Yes, sir.
I would just say, I think what points in this were discussed till now were external, right? Government should do hub, should have infrastructure. I think what service we need to look at first within ourselves. Just to give quick one or two small examples, because I think we have overshot our time also. So, for example, when order comes, I was in Hong Kong with Epic Factory. When order comes, within 24 hours, they have to place orders for all fabrics, embellishment, thread, everything. And they can't go home before that. It's not that 7 days you take to order. People forget these small things. Then, for example, if buyer changes everything so often, approvals are coming, fabric design is changed, color is changed. So whoever are the suppliers, they keep their suppliers in CC all the time. They are not changing the supplier every day. They're keeping them CC. So if I, as a supplier, comes to know that this is the color change or this is the SKU change which is happening, my supplier of fabric also knows in advance. So he knows what kind of design changes are happening. And if I have to give sample in 2 days, I need to have machines where sampling is my key focus. So I think this garment industry is very minute, while larger things can still keep on happening. India, a lot of things are changing fast. It will happen. I think what service you are talking about and supply chain, it's a trust with the supply chain partners and making it very transparent and visible, and actually on your foot always to be able to deliver what buyer needs. The whole organization, every person of the organization should know this is what I. So it's easier said than done because it's a culture. It can't be just taught. It's a culture building. It takes its own time. And today China is not because it is lowest cost. That those days are gone. China is up because you have variety of product mix, you have scale, you have cost, you have service. These four things they provide, and they want to shift, then you have to provide all four. So that is briefly I wanted to say. I think this is what which is available where we can do ourselves.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So my next three questions are for everyone. The next question is, how can trade promotion organizations support exporters in navigating new buyer requirements and positioning India as a long-term sourcing destination? It is a major challenge that we face today. So,
So I think this was more to be answered by
Yeah,
even.
I was just saying
Rahul bhai.
Prashant and I can rule ourselves out of this.
Reason is,
No,
I tell you,
but I don't mind.
yeah, please.
I don't mind risking my neck as usual. But I think our trade promotion council, and I include the CMAI in that. Uh, I think we are not doing enough for the industry as a whole. I think the trade councils need to now look at the future as to what is required, what is likely to be required 10 years from now, 5 years from now, and try and create an ecosystem whereby our members can be prepared to sort of face the future as and when it comes. Of course, it's a give and take situation, cart and horse situation. I remember when I was part of APC, when compliance had just started coming in, we had tried to conduct some kind of a training program for making your factories compliant, and we had a extremely poor response from the industry, so we had to drop that. It was an excellent training program, but we had to drop that. But we need to keep at it. We today, in fact, the whole thing has become even more important, and therefore it is very important that the associations are led by people who have that foresight and who have that what do you call stake in the industry's growth, and that it is forward looking. Uh, so I think that requires to be done, and I think the trade bodies now need to go beyond providing platforms for buyer-seller meet.
Right, right,
We
right.
need
I agree
to
with you, sir.
convert ourselves into centers of learning, centers of knowledge sharing.
Like market research and analysis, like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today, for example, what is the kind of research that our associations are doing? As to what market is buying
Yes, yes.
what kind of products at what price points, what is the lead time from China, what is the lead time from Bangladesh, all this kind of comparative analysis and
Yeah,
all.
competitive analysis
Prashant
and
is
all.
probably doing this as his own business, but are we using his services to sort of inform our members, to
Members.
enlighten our members? So, in my opinion, associations so far have focused on
Buyer
providing
seller meets.
platforms for buyer-seller meets. We need to go much
Beyond
beyond
that.
that. I'm not saying that associations are not doing it. I'm saying that we need to do much more.
Right.
Okay. So, so what is the scope for setting up integrated apparel hubs or clusters to match the scale and efficiency of China's model? I think we have discussed it, but I think we
Yeah.
can tweak one or two points here.
एक तो चाइना को भूल जाओ
भूल
they've
जाओ.
they've gone in a separate orbit altogether. Trying to compete with Bangladesh now.
Yeah.
I think that's a answer which Prashant can probably give. But my only one point, Prashant,
Yeah.
have we done enough of study on why the existing textile parks have failed? And when we have set up these the parks, have we taken those issues into account? I'm asking, I'm not commenting,
Yeah.
I'm
So,
asking because obviously till now, I think most textile parks that were set up in the last 10 years have either closed down or are limping
They're
along.
limping, sir, limping.
Uh,
Most.
yeah.
And
So,
one
so
more question on that, Prashantji, is for the last decade, exports are from 35 billion to 40 billion. Only 1 year, I think, in 2024, 22, during COVID time, it was around 40,
25.
40 plus. ये क्यों है? मतलब this
No,
is out of, like,
no, no.
because people ask me, like I being a ED, अरे यार मनीष 10 साल से तुम्हारा तो 30 बिलियन से 40 बिलियन कुछ नहीं है क्या? पावरलूम का कितना है? एईपीसी का, एप्पल का कितना है? 20 बिलियन, 15 बिलियन, 20 बिलियन. कॉटन का कितना है? There are so many, like 11 export promotion councils. क्या कर रहे हो? आप समझ रहे हैं ना? तो like you being an outsider, like you're an expert. I just want like to understand.
So, Maheshji, I tell you, this we know, and we have been in, I think when we started this discussion, we said that when we talk about FTA, we talk about export growth, ultimately it has to come from somebody putting up factories. Rahul
Right.
Bhai gave an example, 20 people were sitting and nobody raised the hand who has
Right.
set up a factory. So ultimately investments have to happen. So investment will happen when the industry is really, really consistently profitable, and you are able to, you are reinvesting the profit, thinking that you are important part of this industry, and you are important part of this industry, you are reinvesting time and again. So these things becomes really, really important for the business to grow. Just a second, I think I am I visible, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
you are.
Because phone call came. So, uh, investment has to happen. Now, the question of PM Mitra Park, SITP, which was there, we know why it failed. So, I think PM Mitra, whatever the PM Mitra is delayed, but whatever the issues which were there at SITP, they're all taken care of. But PM Mitra is 1,000 plus. Now, DIPP is coming up with a scheme of 100 to 300 acre park, where they are giving much more, almost 100 crore plus, to really invest in right infrastructure. So when we talk about these parks, what is needed? What is needed is the right infrastructure. You need to give pre-built sheds. And the third, I think the one of the most important, we say we have 140 crore people, but in this industry we talked about in today's discussion is people are not available. Can we take the responsibility? And I tell you why I am bringing government in this, because state governments can take this responsibility of ensuring that putting up training centers where in different parts of city, which are clusters of people, and then train them there, residential training centers, and then bring them at the doorstep where the factories are being put. I don't think everybody says you can take factories to where workers are, but you don't take factories to villages where workers are, because ultimately factory needs to be connected with infrastructure, and then people who have to run, they have to live there, right kind of schools, everything has to be there. So everybody wants to be near cities. So from that perspective, you need to have clusters built, where the parks built, where the all infrastructure is there, and then provide dormitories in those, provide trained workforce. So I think what is addressed in PM Mitra, while it is getting delayed at a larger level, needs to be replicated at smaller level, but all ingredient needs to be there. You can't say that PM Mitra has all this, but because I have a smaller park, I can manage without dormitory. I can manage without a centralized ETP or a ZLD. So I think if these are done, there is no other way which can happen. And the only last thing I would say, these parks have to be. It's not that these parks has to be built by anchors. It has to be led by anchors. Because in India, when we talk about MSME, MSME does not have that marketing support. So we need to build trust. We need to identify anchors which will have. So any anchor might not want to employ 1 lakh people, but you can have like it's a retail model. Raymond's does not have stores all of its own. 80% of their stores is run by franchisees. Somebody's son wants to start a store, he makes it one store as a business. So one 500 machines factory can be made a business. So we need to build newer models to be able to say that still worldwide MSME exists in this industry. It will always be MSME there, but led by anchors, led by somebody like, Japan created their own model of Marubeni, Itochu, those kind of centers where you make anything, you supply to them, they will have offices in 100 countries in the world, and they will be able to sell. So I think we need to go to the drawing board, relook at everything, and then see that how we need to really implement all this.
Thank you, sir. So lastly, my question is how can India leverage digital technologies or AI-based solutions to improve design, forecasting, and buyer engagements for exports? So Prashant,
I
sir,
am technologically
Yeah, please.
challenged. So I can stay away from the question.
No, I would say, Rahul Bhai, I have recently been going out and seeing these factories in Vietnam, Bangladesh, China, where almost 50% of factories are now smart factories. Everything is getting digitalized. I think this is what I said in my earlier discussion. Today, when you set up a new factory, you can't say that I'll set up factory the way my earlier factory was. It has to be smart factory. The man-machine ratio has to be much lower. Automation has to be much higher. Digitalization, the simple meaning to be understood of digitalization is you're collecting all data at one place so that on time, immediately action can be taken, because once it's a garment, once the garment is made, the rework will reduce the efficiency drastically. So if some problem is coming, you can attend it there and then at that time. So I think digitalization means that, and the biggest part of automation digitalization, where sometimes those people who implement it also miss the bus, is they don't understand the importance of training of each and every person, from a pattern maker to a worker to supervisor, that how we need to spend more time in training of these workforce in digitalization than saying, because somebody having that tool will implement in 1 month. But how about training? Training means it's a change of mindset, it's a change of orientation. So I think as Rahul Bhai said, and as I would also say, the latest thing which comes to market, our kids adopt it much faster. So because we think we can get away with that. But this is what we need to be very clear, that there is no getting away from digitalization and being smart factory.
Right.
Okay, so we'll quickly take two questions from the audience. So how will the government and industry address the EU regulations requiring digital product passports showing verified material traceability data?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the
I also
question.
couldn't hear.
Yeah, so the question from the audience is, how will the government and industry address EU regulations requiring digital product passport showing verified material traceability data?
Uh, so this is really far off, I can tell you. So asking this question is like, first people have to agree that if once digital passport, actually this is a norm which will be implemented in next 5 years in US, that everything which is bought will have a passport, like every individual as a person has a passport, every product will have a passport from when it enters EU, so that they can trace it goes to the landfill or it goes to recycling. So the whole idea of digital passport is it's end to end being traced, because everything which is used has to be recycled. So, and then they are talking about no blends. Then they are talking about fast fashion is no fashion, it's slow fashion. So there's so many detailings there before digital passport being implemented, but it's going to come, I think. But we should wait and instead of work on that at this moment.
Okay. So the another question that we have from the audience is, how can government support exporters so that they can transition from supplier to brand owners?
See, I would say only that when we say it's a brand, Rahul Bhai will be able to answer. Brand, the whole notion of brand is different. The brand does not mean that brand is if you are able to deliver something consistently as per the expectation to a buyer, you become a brand. But how much time it takes to provide something consistently? So people, when everybody does not have to become a brand, larger part of the population will always be suppliers to brand. So those who are focusing on, because conversion to brand is not a easy solution. It's like if you are able to you become a supplier brand. If you are able to, I can say, oh, can I go to KPR Mills, because whatever order I give it to them, they supply in right quality consistently in time. So they become a brand. It's not that Gap is a brand or Uniqlo is a brand. So there are different kinds of brands. So when you say exporter, you can become an exporter. Brand is what is more important than saying that how do you transition from an exporter to a brand. That's what my take is, Rahul Bhai.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question very well, but from what I can understand from what Prashant's answer was, how does one regular supplier or ordinary normal supplier become a brand?
Yes.
I think, Ashima, you'll need to give me one whole webinar exclusively if you want me to answer that. But in very, very brief summary form, Uh, Firstly, the biggest myth today is that branding is advertising. That is not the case. Advertising is only one small part of building a brand. When you say that you are building a brand or you are brand, you are making a promise to your customer. And how well you retain that promise, how well you keep up to that promise, is what will strengthen or weaken your brand. That's number one. Number two, a brand must have a personality. It's almost like we know Mahesh Sanil is this. We know Prashant is this. So in that sense, every brand has a personality, and that personality has to be built up over a certain period, some very often years together. And in a way, I differ from what Prashant said, that Gap is not a brand. Yes,
Yeah.
is a brand, because a person goes into Gap store and buys that product. He's buying a shirt, he's buying a pair of jeans or trousers, but he's buying there knowing that he's paying a price which is probably 30% more expensive than what he can get the next door.
Right.
What is he paying that extra 30% for? Gap product, when I buy, it will be a good quality, it will be consistent quality, it will be good value for my money, it will enhance my personality and my image in the front of my peers. So that is the whole brand imagery that has to be created. It's not easy for a factory owner or a supplier or an exporter to overnight say, okay, now from tomorrow I'm going to become a brand. No, that does not happen. It will require a different organization setup. It will require a different top management, because the thinking has to be different, the mindset has to be different. But in a way, I agree with the person who has raised this question, that at some point of time, we will need to build a whole body of brands, and perhaps some of the Indian brands who are existing today need to be pushed into the export market to try and market their own brands. That might be a quicker method. CMAI, in its own way, has tried by having an exhibition called the Brands of India in the Middle East. It has not met with too much of success, but we will be continuing our efforts. And it requires according to me, it requires a different set of people. So the existing people who are just used to taking orders, buying fabrics against those orders, manufacturing, supplying, getting their payments, I think they are unlikely to be convert themselves into brands. I mean, 1982, when I joined the creative group, they were one of the leading exporters. But when the chairman Vijay Agarwal decided that he would like to create some Indian brand, he brought me in as a partner to look after the branding business, to look after the domestic branding business. And that was how we were able to successfully launch several Indian brands. He did not ask the existing manpower to handle that business. So it requires a totally different brand.
Yeah. Ashima, I think I have another meeting starting at 3:30.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are just binding up, sir.
So I just say hello and bye. Yeah.
This is the
No
shortest
problem, sir.
ever
No
Meeting is
talk
problem.
on
starting.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was a lovely session, very insightful. Thank you, Rahul sir. Thank you, Shobhit sir. Thank you, Mahesh sir, and thank you, Prashant sir.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
So
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot. And for the
Thank you so much.
audience, so we apologize that we could not take all the questions. Any questions, if you have, we welcome them through email.
Yeah. Kar do.
So thank you, everyone.
Thanks and bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for the session.
Okay.